like I said, when the fire is going to be extinguished.
Lisa,
Lisa, thank you very much.
Lisa?
Good luck with that.
Lisa?
Yes.
How many floors collapsed? How many ceilings collapsed? Do you remember what he said?
How many floors actually collapsed? How many levels?
What would you say? About 3 or 4 or 5? There's so many. It was small. 3 to 4. We were going down, up and down. We couldn't even tell where we were. Had to be 4 to 5.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people were down there?
Do you have any idea how many people were down there at the time? They mentioned 2 or 3 earlier, but do you know how many people are accounted for?
Not offhand, no. We're talking to workers down there, and apparently most of them did get out.
Oh, that's
so they're checking now to see if there's anybody else that was left in the building.
Still a very confusing, difficult situation.
Yeah, it's still very confusing down there. A lot of smoke still, the fire. Once that's out and everything settles, we'll be able to figure it out.
The fire still going?
Stand by. I'm sorry, Jim?
Is the fire still going?
They said a moment ago they think they have it out as of a little while ago, but they haven't been cleared to go back in to go recheck the area.
Is it unusual for the explosion of one transformer to do so much damage to reinforce a concrete?
I'm sorry, Jim. It's very staticky. Can you repeat this?
All right. Thank you, Lisa, very much. Thank you.
Well, we've been wondering about that all afternoon, how severe the damage was at the PATH train World Trade Center station.
Levels collapsed.
And as he said, 2 people are believed trapped. They have not been able to get to these 2 people. PATH service canceled at this point in and out of the World Trade Center station. Frank, did you want to say something?
Well, no, except that I think we should again point out for anybody who's tuned in late that the building itself is not in fire. There's no danger of that. The fire is confined to the area below the building for the most part. The major problem here is smoke. And that, of course, is a major problem because smoke can kill. And smoke can also cause all kinds of terrible damage.
Pictures of survivors. You know, when you talk about fires, all right.
Okay. Tell me, Bill.
As we're doing that, Frank, tell us about the fires. You know, you may have a fire in your apartment, you're worried, concerned how to get out, versus a fire in an office building, the difference.
What's the number?
There's a tremendous difference when you're dealing with what we see here. People have been working in an office building. Office buildings are wide open. Except for the folks that we have talking to us on one number has been simply flooded. This is the alternate number. Only if you're within the building and if you're trapped. This is the number to call, 718-430-0261. That's 718-430-0261. We'll keep that number up for a while. But as I started to say to you before, the difference between folks who are watching...
Except for one train, and obviously the Staten Island Express bus will not be running tonight. But we don't know how many people were here at the PATH station. It was lunchtime when this happened, about 12:18 this afternoon. There's always all kinds of activity in this concourse that connects all 3 towers and the Vista Hotel. People, you know, go to the concourse to get lunch, and it's usually pretty busy around that time.
Two of them happened at the worst time. So we just got a phone number in here, and this is only for people who are actually trapped. Please don't call this number unless you're actually trapped and need help, need to let the firefighters know where you are. And of course, the only way to get a call out, because the power is off, is if you happen to have a cellular telephone, as Deborah Cusack had. She was able to call us. If you're listening, Deborah, or if our control room can get back through to you on your
windows in the buildings to get rid of the smoke. Any problems from
0261. And of course, we'll try to make a call, a backup call for those people trapped on the 83rd floor of tower number 2 of the World Trade Center.
And obviously, this was some kind of smoke that was being released after the explosion.
It looked like steam billowing out there.
But what's interesting, and we still don't know the cause of this, Con Edison said it had nothing to do with any of their transformers or anything to do with their system. People who were in the buildings, some of them report hearing 2 explosions, one happening not long after the other one, and seeing and smelling and feeling the smoke almost immediately. I mean, this smoke has gone up, and we've heard from Deborah Cusack, who's in Tower 2 on the 83rd floor. It's made its way all the way up there. People who had to make their way down through the towers made their way down in smoky stairwells in the dark. Many of them said that they only heard a few alarms. There has been no communication with any kind of emergency or security officials in the towers to help them down, and they made their own way down, and probably when they reached about the 30th floor is when they ran into firefighters or other emergency officials who were able to
subway, and the continuing stream of ambulances, police and fire vehicles. There's one now coming through Lower Manhattan. We have have people pouring out of the entrances kind of in groups of about a dozen. You can tell what's happening. The groups are making it down from the stairs. We just saw the chefs, people who serve the food here at 5 World Trade Center, come out, again, with nothing to protect them from the elements. This very cold blowing snow. Dan, over here, we can see live EMS is helping a woman now. She's surrounded by camera crews, helping her out. What was obviously a bad situation, we can presume, in one of the World Trade Center towers. Her footing is not at all steady, but you see this sort of thing all over this area in Lower Manhattan. A woman with a white blouse and a blue skirt, and they're just loading them in ambulances and taking them, we assume, to Beekman downtown, to Bellevue.
You know, our public address system, I mean, the Port Authorities, this is a tragedy what's going on here, that we can't even get information. No one has addressed us and said, you are in an emergency situation. It's been going on for 2.5 hours now.
Well, it is. There are an awful lot of questions that are going to have to be answered in the aftermath, but I'm primarily concerned about trying to help what little we can to try to get you folks some good advice.
Whoever else. I mean, I'm sure there's other people trapped in this building, and this is just... You know,
we do have some information for you from the fire department. What the fire department is telling you to do, you said that the smoke is there now and you're afraid it's going to get heavier. What they're telling you to do is to remove a couple of the ceiling tiles in the rooms where you're trapped, so you'll have at least 3 feet of extra breathing space so that the smoke will rise.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Okay, and once you have somebody do that right away, Deborah.
And stay low. Stay on the floor. Stay where you are. There's no need to evacuate everyone because the fire is now under control.
Okay, well, that's good news. That's what we want to hear because, you know, we have no information like that.
And again, I know it's easier said than done. They're saying, you know, don't panic, relax, stay low, and that's a very... That's very good advice, certainly. Remove some of the ceiling panels so that at least the smoke will go even higher, and as long as you stay low, you should be okay. They're saying that the fire is now under control, and there's no need to evacuate everyone.
Okay,
well... So, Deborah, get the ceiling panels out, then call...
Eventually, after the situation occurred, that someone would come up and get us.
All right, David, have you seen any rescue workers to this point?
Not at this point, I haven't.
All right.
To right now, from my understanding, they're trying to control the situation downstairs, and they really haven't gotten to any people up on the upper floors.
Yes, that's true.
People trapped still.
Yes, that is true. There are a number of people who are on the 90th floor still. David, are you aware there's an emergency hotline number you should be calling?
Right. I've been trying to call that number for the past 15 minutes since I first saw it on Channel 9 and CNN, which Channel 9 was also broadcasting over. I have a portable television which we hooked into Manhattan Cable, and you're right now Channel 9 and one other station is the only stations that are actually broadcasting on the air.
Yes, I know, and we're not on the air all over the place, believe it or not, because our transmitter has been hit. But I'm more concerned about you. You've been calling the number that's on our screen now, 718-403-0261.
Right, and it's been busy.
You're getting a busy signal.
So that tells me that there are a lot of people in the Trade Center still that are trapped.
Right.
And, you know, you can't always get to all the calls as they, you know, there are going to be a snafu of phone calls going.
Now, that woman was a chef. I talked about her before. She was on the 31st floor of Tower A at the World Trade Center. And our guest here, Vito DeLeo, he was underneath the center in sublevel 2. So you can see people just trapped all over the building, of the tower.
I would imagine so. From what I understand, a lot of the, I guess, whatever happens when there's an explosion, may have traveled. There was a lot of elevator shafts and may have traveled up the shafts or whatever, and that's how from what I understand, the floors have shake, you know, the Trade Center did shake due to the explosion.
Mary? Yes, Dana. I'll try my best to hear you.
Okay, well, Frank and I were just talking about this. Some of the people who are on the higher floors complaining that they weren't given information. we're
not... the idea here...
Oh, Vito's one of those people who's trapped.
If Vito and his men, who normally would have communication with all the floors, Mary, was available, he would be talking to those folks that we're talking to, trying to get them to understand that there is help on the way. Yeah. But he and his men have apparently been knocked out of the situation and they can't help.
Yes.
So this kind of answers that. And unfortunately, those circumstances do occur.
Mary, thank you. We'll get back to you in a little bit. With us now on the telephone is Isaias Rivera, who we've talked to several times during the afternoon. Isaias, what are you seeing going on up there?
Okay, we have access to the roof right now. We have a helicopter that landed at Bristol Air Supply and some officers, and they're preparing to take us out in the helicopter. Right now I have the police officer, Sagi. He might have some words.
Okay.
He might talk to you right now.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Can I ask you? Hello, officer.
This is Police Officer Zogby, Emergency Service Unit.
How are you? Frank Field here and Dana.
How are you?
Could I ask you, the normal events, you don't land helicopters on rooftops in New York City to save people.
Not at all. It's part of a high-rise rescue system that we have. And what we did is we rappelled out of the helicopter onto the rooftop.
You didn't land a helicopter?
No. We rappelled 4 officers, 3 officers and a sergeant onto the rooftop.
Well, explain to the public, rappelling means what? You came down on rope?
We came down on a rope, right? We're all trained in rope rescue.
And what are your officers doing?
Right now we're trying to keep the people calm. We have 5 minor injuries up here on the rooftop. And we're clearing an area for a landing zone for the helicopter to bring in some elevator mechanics to fix the elevators to bring everybody down to ground level.
Oh,
okay.
So did some people actually go to the roof for refuge? Is that what you're finding there, or are you heading down?
Well, actually, we're at the transmitter station now. We're cleared down at floor 107.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is when we get the elevators fixed, that's what I've been told from my supervisors, that when we get the elevators fixed, we're going to just bring people down to ground level.
Any idea how long that's going to be?
You'll guess this is a good point. I just got here.
It could be hours.
Well, also, in landing a helicopter, you know, we should really explain, landing a helicopter on a rooftop building in Manhattan is quite an accomplishment. You did not land. I want to emphasize that.
No, we didn't land, but we're clearing a landing zone now. We're clearing the end.
That's from 2?
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Okay.
Okay, there. The picture here is that it appears that the evacuation of this building seems to have largely been consummated, although they're still searching for people. This is Gabe Pressman with Dave Browdy down here at the #1 World Trade Center building, which was rocked by an explosion and the aftermath of smoke earlier this afternoon. Back to the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Gabe. And let me just tell you also that we don't have communication with Gabe Pressman, and as he mentioned, he and Dave Browdy have been on the scene down there. You're still looking at the live picture for the last 2.5 hours because of the difficulties imposed by the explosion and power outage and the World Trade Center where our transmitter is. We haven't been able to talk to Gabe, so he and Dave don't have the updated information that we're getting on the wire services about this. They mentioned they didn't know of any fatalities. We have unconfirmed reports of 2 fatalities so far and hundreds injured. And also about the broadcasting, we are not yet transmitting over the air in New York City, but we are now being transmitted, in addition to some 2 cable systems in the city. We are being transmitted to those people on Long Island who receive Channel 21, and that's public television. They are now rebroadcasting the signal, so we welcome you, and we'll try to give you as updated and bit of information as we can on this calamity that struck New York today, when an explosion of unknown origin now detonated under the World Trade Center towers and just over the PATH station, dislodging a huge chunk of the ceiling in the PATH station and injuring, trapping a lot of people beneath the rubble. And of course, then the smoke somehow made its way almost immediately into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. And there are still people trapped. Gabe and Dave have no way of knowing this right now, but there are still people trapped. We were talking to one woman who is with 40 other people.
And actually, Chuck, we have another woman who is trapped on the 94th floor. We're not really sure which tower. Her name is Catherine Hamlin. Catherine, can you hear us?
Yes.
Where are you, Catherine, and what's the situation?
94th floor, 2 World Trade. At this point, it seems like the smoke is somewhat dissipating. There's still, a fair degree of smoke, and people are nervous, to say the least, but everybody's coping pretty well. more relaxed than we were earlier.
Have you gotten any information from building officials at all as to what to do?
Perhaps the device was squirreled away in some locker with a timing mechanism to go off at, in this case, at exactly the wrong time. For us, exactly the right time for the terrorists, when the PATH station would certainly be crowded, when people would be in the World Trade Center towers. Obviously, if you're going to make some kind of a statement and you're a terrorist, Lower Manhattan is a ripe target. This is the heartbeat of the world financial community, and certainly that would be a place to do this if that indeed is the case. Sue Simmons has joined us here, and she's got an interesting little question for discussion. Sue?
Yes, I'm wondering, we've been hearing a lot about Clinton and his putting together a Bosnian policy about whether we're going to airlift food over there and such, and it seems to me if we're already starting to have Bosnian problems here, this could seriously affect what his position on this matter is going to be and rush it into effect.
Well, it could, yeah, it certainly could. He is going ahead with the UN blessing, with an airdrop, and actually the military commanders on the scene have that authority to do that now. They simply have to get out a plan. That is, they want to fly from high altitude and parachute supplies into people who've been cut off by the civil war that rages in what used to be Yugoslavia. There are a lot of people over there who are unhappy with, for example, the arms embargo that's prevented a lot of the Bosnians from arming themselves to defend against Serb aggression. This is a very bloody, awful conflict that's going on that is now obviously getting the attention of the world in other ways.
News 4's John Miller is on the phone with us now to give us more information about
this could have been caused by a terrorist bomb. At this time, they say they cannot get close enough to give an accurate assessment, but all of this is steeped against the idea that the 1st Precinct received a call claiming credit for this as a bombing. The other experts we've spoken to say they have never seen a blast with damage like this that has been consistent with some kind of improvised explosive device cause. So they are leaning very heavily towards that now.
John, was the call the 1st Precinct got made before or after the explosion, and how long after, if it was after?
As I understand it, it was made a short time after. Now, you don't have an explosion at the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan without word getting out on the news immediately, so it is the kind of a call that could have been a hoax by somebody who heard it and thought they would advance their own political belief. On the other hand, most of the time in these cases, a call will be after the blast to make sure that the device went off successfully before they claim responsibility for it. So it's hard to weigh.
Play that both ways, John. Describe once again, if you would, since you got a good hard look at what happened in there, the damage.
If you look over here, you'll see the two buildings, and sandwiched between them is the Vista Hotel. The northernmost tower, which is tower number 1, is divided with that hotel down the line, and in the passageway between that hotel and that tower is a gaping, smoking hole that goes down 3 levels into the basement level, into the sub-basement level, which I believe, just from recollection, is a garage. So you've got 3 levels of this concrete floor blown out, and this is really the root of their trouble. Down in that basement level, there's the garage, of course. There's the Port Authority's own police headquarters for this building. There's a lot of hallways and kitchen works for that hotel, and there's a lot of electrical works. So the cables and the high voltage lines are all A, exposed, B, many of them live, C, many of them doused with water, and of course there was 2 series of collapses after the initial blast and fire, which put the workers down there, the rescue workers, in severe danger. So really the bomb squad people can't get close enough to make an accurate assessment as to whether there's a bomb until the fire department and the Port Authority literally clears a way for them that they can plod through.
You know, the fact that there were a couple of collapses following the initial explosion may explain why some people reported they thought they heard a second explosion afterward, or something else happened after the initial blast.
That would be consistent. Monitoring it over the radios as it developed, you heard the emergency workers who were down there could not work with their radios because they couldn't transmit out of that sub-basement. So several of them ran up to the surface and transmitted emergency messages about these collapses and the fact that they were withdrawing their own people, and they haven't really been able to get back that far in.
John, as you know, whenever there is a suspicion of one terrorist bomb, you've got to start thinking about a second device.
Well, that is the first rule of post-blast activity. I mean, in every bomb manual for law enforcement, they say, when you arrive on the scene, beware. The first device might have been a decoy to draw law enforcement people to the scene for a second blast, but apparently the damage from the first blast caused those collapses, and conventionally, if there were going to be a second blast, we would have heard it already.
All right, John, thank you very much. We have on the telephone now Daniel Satoma. Daniel Satoma was in One World Trade Center when all this happened, and you managed to get out okay, Daniel?
Yes, we did, but I can tell you that we were really shocked by the blast when it occurred. We're sitting in a meeting in our office with clients, and all of a sudden we heard this blast, and really were amazed. We couldn't figure out what it was. And it was only after probably about 10 minutes when somebody went by our office and said, we've got to get out of here, that we saw it was something related to the building, and we had to leave.
What floor were you on?
We were on the 57th floor.
And it was pretty loud and pretty obvious even up there.
It was absolutely amazing. It was kind of a sound that caused your heart to stop.
And when that happened, when you heard, you said a few minutes afterward, how many minutes, Daniel?
Probably about 10 minutes.
When you realized that you were in some jeopardy, what did you do then?
We then just grabbed our coats and went to the stairwell. And I could tell you that we couldn't believe that there were no announcements on the public address system. Clearly, the public address system failed. And there were no announcements, and there was really no way to know what was going on. And we just, everybody very calmly walked through into the stairwell and started going down the stairs.
What was the condition in the stairwells, Daniel?
The stairwell was filled with a light smoke at that point on the 57th floor. And I can tell you that I think only because this happened in New York with New Yorkers that people survived and understood they would just calmly proceed down and out the building. And every time people entered the stairwell, the doors opened, more smoke came into the stairwell.
Was there any lighting in the stairwell?
There was lighting. The lights only flickered once.
Flickered on or off?
They flickered off once and came back on.
And came back on in the stairwell?
Yes, they did.
Okay. How about on your floor? Was there any power on your floor after the explosion?
There was power as of the time we left. It was on. One of my partners is saying that it was on and off.
We heard reports from other people who were trapped and who did make their way down the stairwells. Perhaps there were other stairwells that there was no emergency lighting.
We had full lighting, but for that flickering. There were a couple of different stairwells. But I think that in this type of emergency, when you constantly, as a business, develop programs to deal with these safety issues, we were very, very surprised that there was nobody giving direction. There was no public address system whatsoever, and it was everybody kind of just moving forward, including pregnant women and people with heart conditions.
All right, Daniel Satoma, thank you very much. I'm glad you made it out of there safely and that all of your fellow workers got out of the building okay. Quite a day for you, but thanks for joining us. All right, Sue?
All right, Chuck, we have on the phone now Christine Staccato of EMS. Christine, can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can.
Could you describe the condition of the people that you're dealing with at this point?
Yes, right now we're treating about 300 people at Vesey and West End for cuts, contusions, smoke inhalation, minor burns.
Go ahead.
They're being transported to area hospitals, Beekman, St. Vincent's, Lutheran in Brooklyn, Bellevue, Beth Israel, and Lincoln in the Bronx.
Most of the reports we've been hearing, Christine, have to do with smoke inhalation, and Dawn has been asking for most of the afternoon about contusions and such. The contusions that you describe, how were these injuries received?
The ceiling falling, and the broken glass, the cuts were from the broken glass.
Any life-threatening situations that you know of?
None confirmed at this time.
And is your job